While technology has advanced a lot in the last 2 years, there hasn't been as much of a market kind of saturation of these solutions. So back in 2019, when we released that report, Kate hosted a panel at Impact Unleashed where we got suppliers and brands to get up and talk about what they would like to see moving forward, and these solutions were a huge part of that conversation. It was also one of the most popular panels we've ever had in an event. So we couldn't let our first packaging summit go by with providing an update. What's changed in the last 2 years? So I'm thrilled that 3 of the people that sat on that original panel and were brave enough to dip their toes in the first part of this conversation are back, including Caitlin Dudash, our executive director, Glenn from Thanfu Packaging, and Brian from Morris Packaging. So thank you all so much for coming back. And I'm also really excited to welcome a new person to the conversation, Bill from PrintPack. These panelists are going to be talking about these 3 solutions and what are the barriers for really market-wide adaptation and how can we work together to overcome those barriers. So Caitlin, Brian, Glenn, and Bill, welcome, and I'm really excited to hear what you guys talk about today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, thanks so much for the introduction, and just to commend you again. The first time we ran this panel, it was like pulling teeth to get people to join it. The whole industry was really unclear about what direction, which solutions we wanted to focus on, how to really streamline our approach. And many of you were brave to take the stage at that point for the first conversation. And I'm excited to say when Melissa reached out this year, we filled the spots and had more eager to participate. So it's been so amazing just to see this industry come together as we've helped to just unite everyone toward a common goal, and really with, again, as Melissa said, a focus on these 3 key solutions. So I'm going to go through each solution. I'm going to talk about where were we before, where are we today, what's getting in our way from kind of fully optimizing each of these solutions. But before I do this, and some of you have backgrounds so we know who you are, a quick round robin introduction, just who you are, what company you're representing, and where you're calling in from today.
Brian Steinhartner. I'm Executive Vice President of Business Development for Morris Packaging. Been in the industry for over 30 years and calling in from the lovely Plymouth, Minnesota today.
This is Bill Barlow, Sustainable Innovations Manager for PrintPack. I've been with the company 12 years and in the packaging industry for about 16 years now. And I'm calling in from Atlanta, Georgia. So good to see everybody.
Hi, I'm Glenn Treliving from Thanfu. I've been in the industry coming up to 20 years in packaging, and I'm calling in from Northern Ontario.
All right, thanks for that quick intro, and good to just get a sense of where everyone's calling in today from. Okay, so we're going to start today with threshold on recycled content available. Brian, maybe I'll start with you, and why don't we talk about, where were we in 2019 when we had this conversation of, what percentage of post-consumer recycled content could someone easily find in the industry, and where are we today?
Yeah, great. Thanks, Caitlin. We've made tremendous strides in the last 2 years. When I was on the panel 2 years ago, we just started presenting this as an option for sustainability. Today, in 2020, what a tremendous year. We won a silver award at FPA for our 30% recycled content bag. We won an award from a World Star Global Packaging Award. And obviously, we also won the Best Packaging Supplier Award from PSC. Taking all that in, the numbers are staggering. This year in 2020, we've recycled, or part of our recycled packaging with our packaging partners, we've recycled 135 million water bottles to make pet food packaging. And we've also used 5 million pounds of recycled plastic to make those same pet food bags in 2020, and it's growing obviously for 2021. So are great. We can run everything from a 30% up to a 50% content. One of the problems over 50% is, like with paper, you get a degradation of properties over 50%. So you do still need to have some virgin material in there for to perform drop tests and to handle 30, 40 pound bags.
You talked about a range between 30 and 50%. Would be curious to learn, why as a company would you be at 30 instead of 50? What are the things that you compromise as you start to look at maximizing your recycled content, which was Kate's #1. Please do this immediately if you can.
So our baseline, our benchmark was 30, and obviously it's just not easy to put in an extra 20% of recycled content material. You have to definitely change layer distributions and some things that you have to do with the sealant material. So we worked our way up from 30 to 40, and now we're able to do 50%. So I can move our customers, our partners to 50%. It's just a matter of getting their buy-in. But yes, we can do that now.
All right, and for the others on the call, why don't you go ahead and give us a perspective on what your company is offering right now in terms of total percentage of recycled content?
Yeah, this is Bill Barlow here. I agree with a lot what Brian said from the amount of content that we can put in at this point. The 30 to 50% range is spot on from what we've seen. The thing that we, with regards to the threshold, we need to consider is two things. One is really what materials are readily available today, either mechanically recycled and chemically recycled too. So we know that, as Brian alluded to, there's limitations to the amount of mechanical recycled materials we can use. And that's simply due to the fact that, they miss the mark in quality and performance because they have a generation of several heat cycles, their contamination, etc. Whereas for chemical recycled in the future, that they do hit the mark technically because it's essentially virgin resins, but they're not necessarily readily available at this point, and costs are significantly higher. But one of the keys too to driving home the total overall content is the material and how it's constructed. So Brian alluded to designing the film, designing the lamination a certain way. That's absolutely right. And whether or not you're designing to be not recyclable or you're designing to be recyclable can potentially change the amounts and the way that you design, your package overall. I can comment that if you took a standard polyethylene lamination and you replace that with, let's say, an rPET material for print web, and then you maximize your PCR content with mechanical recycle, in the sealant film, the reality of getting to about a 50% benchmark is real. But we bring in chemically recycled to the future of designing to the recycling stream. There's opportunity to include that now in a polyethylene print web and maximizing your sealant web to a point where truly we could probably get to a 90-95% PCR content package in the future that's recyclable. And I think that's what we're trying to drive to, going forward is laying the groundwork now, developing the partnerships with the key resin suppliers, and setting ourselves up for success going forward with the customer demand.
I'll echo William and Brian's comment with the 30 to 50. We're also a little unique in the fact that we don't use any polyester at all, period. Everything within our facility is only low density polyethylene, which gives us a bit of a unique opportunity where we don't create any material scrap out of the plant because we recycle all of our own material as well, because it is low density polyethylene. So everything we do when we create a recycled content bag is also fully recyclable. So it's a bit of a unique situation because we don't enter any material into our stream that is not fully recyclable.
All right, well, Bill, that was exciting to hear that you think chemical recycling, if we take bags, we turn them back into their polymers, and we re-inject that back into new packaging, that could really get us to a 90% threshold. You know, thinking about technology in the future, how far off do you think that might be?
I think it's realistic within the next 18 months. The thing is that is going to be key here is the supply. We know that there's going to be a limited supply, at least from what we're hearing with the announcements from a lot of the chemical suppliers, the resin suppliers. So, but I think realistically within an 18-month time frame that we can drive to that number, and we're identifying specific resins for multiple packagings. Another thing that Glenn mentioned was his is all based on low density. That may be the case, but we've got a range of products that are offered that are all types of multi-laminate structures as well that we have to consider. But I'd really think that 18-month time frame, by the time that these chemical companies get scaled up, they're able to offer these materials in, that we can get there and make a model for pet food packaging going forward.
Well, it's slightly music to my ear that you think it's a supply issue, because I happen to know 300 million pounds right now that might be an excellent supply for that. So exciting to hear that. So we've got two other premier solutions that we want to make sure we have time to cover. So I'm going to move on to the second one, which is around monomaterial. It's also been called recycle-ready resin, used throughout the conference today. So when we had this conversation 2 years ago, it was not ready for market. Even if there were small bags, there really weren't large format bags for the sized pet food bags that are in the market today. So curious about, monomaterial. Where have we come? Just talk me through kind of your company or your industry perspective. You don't have to wear your company hat either. But how have you seen the shift in both demand and supply of monomaterial over the last couple of years change in the pet industry?
I'll start. It definitely has changed, and the big issue has always been cost. I believe in an earlier one, Emerson Packaging had talked about how the all polyethylene materials do run slower, so the cost has increased. And we can make a all polyethylene bag, quad seal, so it looks perfect on the shelf, but it does run slower. So we developed some new technology that will be out in April that is going to be cost competitive with a multi-wall paper bag, basically at cost or lower price than a multi-wall paper bag that is 100% recyclable, all polyethylene structure, can also include recycled content within that structure as well, and will run on current filling lines. So we're extremely excited about this technology. Can't wait to get it out there and get it tested. And we really think that that's going to be a major win for the pet food industry going forward.
Yeah, I agree. I'm excited to see where monomaterial goes for pet food. It's certainly something that's achievable. But I believe that really it's going to depend on what we're replacing and ultimately the design of that structure in the package. We know that, and I agree on the cost front, but we know we have to build in certain properties that we have today, such as heat resistance and barrier and toughness, puncture resistance, grease barrier. Some of those things that may not fit the bill with a polyethylene structure exactly. So what we urge, and when we have conversations with our customers, is we want to talk about what trade-offs are possible, right? And that's really where the conversation needs to start with. But if we're able to make trade-offs, i.e. shelf life, some other type of performance, and replace that existing non-recyclable package with a monomaterial based lamination with polyethylene, there is going to be the trade-off, and at least one of those right now is cost too. But we consider cost not just in the raw material, but in the overall total delivered cost of that package. So running on our equipment, running on baggers, running on pouchers, running at our customers' equipment and the filling lines too, that we have to consider all of those efficiencies that we have gotten over the years through multiple decades of development. If you can't make trade-offs, then you might already be in the most sustainable package there is, because of the cost of materials and the efficiencies, et cetera, that we have, with all of the development work that we've done over the years. But I'm excited to see where the monomaterial goes in the future.
I actually have a slightly different perspective than Brian and William on this one. We've encountered little or no issues, more probably because it's all we run. We really specialize in the mono web. So creating a bag from 4 ounces up to 44 pounds in any format structure, we have zero issues with any of this. For grease barrier, for anything. We have been able to, by simply focusing only on that solution and primarily on that solution, we've been able to overcome a lot of the challenges, including some of the cost prohibitive challenges that people would, or early. Machines have to be modified to run this material. They're not going to run, on conventional equipment that has been around for a long time. But as far as William's point in the plant, every line trial we've done has seen no issues at all, runs really well. And durability is incredible because it's extremely puncture resistant and won't tear. It won't zipper like a conventional pouch. So in some regards, it actually ends up premium. I'm not sure how much of your brands have returns for broken bags and things like that, but the bag is incredibly durable, and it looks and feels and touch and performs identical to a current package. So.
All right. Well, great to kind of hear all of your perspectives on that. And I'm so heartened to hear that we have made incredible progress as an industry toward that solution. I thought, the keynote this morning with Bare Naked, where they really didn't have to make trade-offs. They had 8 key things they wanted in their packaging, and that included, colors and inks and design and durability and shelf life. Now, recognizing they're in a little tiny snack package, which is a lot different than a 40-pound bag of dog food. So realize we have some other challenges as well. But was, just by collaborating, throughout the entire supply chain, bringing in resin providers, looking at the supplier all together to really establish a pathway to make that happen, I thought was a great example of an industry shifting in that direction. So I hear some of the pieces on cost, and I had a question around functionality with a metallized layer. So I know as we move to a monomaterial, and part of what we heard from Kurt is that this metal liner that is so prevalent in pet food bags, and sometimes you can't even see it, is really providing a problem for end-of-life or mechanical recycling at this point. So just wondering if you could share with us, what function does a metallized layer play, and is it necessary?
Sure. From my perspective, the metallized layer is more from an aesthetics look, from a marketing graphics look, than anything else. Some consumers feel when they open the bag and see that metallized, it looks like a premium product, but it provides no barrier, because keep in mind, all large pet food bags have holes punched in them for air evacuation. So you're not gaining any barrier from it because you're punching holes in that bag. So it's I believe it's there strictly for a marketing aesthetics look.
I can agree with Brian on the bag side. I think where PrintPack plays a lot of in the market now is pet treats. And for those types of bags where you're dealing with stand-up pouches or small flat bottom bags, etc., They do bring the aesthetic and shelf appeal, there's no doubt, but they do play a vital role in providing barrier performance that we need in a lot of those pet treats. So it's definitely something that we feel like we need, but we know that we can tweak some of our structures here and make some, suggestions for alternates that perhaps are a clear barrier, or even now build in some barrier technology innovation into the sealant films that can compete with the metallized barrier performance that we're getting, especially in the pet treat market.
Yeah, I would agree with Brian as well. Some brands are using it for graphics, for aesthetics. They've got that metallized look built into their brand. So for them, it's important in some cases. And again, it becomes, because we come from a bit of a different position, we're already advancing the barriers. From the treats that I'm seeing, a lot of the brands want windows so that the consumer can actually see the treat and whatever. So we're starting to get into barrier technology that is not equal to metallized polyester, but it's high enough to contain and hold pet treats for long periods of time, still in a mono material, and it is how to recycle approved. So we're really making headway on that, Caitlin. We're coming a long way from 2 years ago.
Yeah, I agree. Working with your customer to understand what their real shelf life and barrier requirements are. In a lot of cases, some of the packaging, just in general, flexible packaging may perhaps be over-engineered. And it's nice to take a step back and, through front-end innovation, think about, clarify the need, understand, what really needs to be solved here, and what potentially that trade-off could be with regards to barrier. Because in a lot of cases, there can be some sacrifices made and get to a point where we're in a better position.
Yeah, that's a good point, Blaine, because a lot of the customers just don't know the barrier requirements that are actually required. And once they look at what they really need, we've perhaps somebody's over-engineered that package somewhere along the line. That's not the first time that's happened.
All right, so we still have this third solution to dive into, and I realize we're coming up on the end of our time, but we're going to slip just a little bit into the next session because I think it's important. So the last piece is around standardized labeling. So we recognize that consumers have no idea what to do with flexible packaging, let alone pet food packaging. Most of them need to go to landfill, but a lot of people are doing wish cycling, which I probably, not for FlexPack, but for other things, I'm probably a wish cycler, which means I put things in the recycling bin really hoping that my recycler is going to do something great with it. But the truth is that's really terrible for the system. So when we talked about standardized labeling, we talked about the How to Recycle label. We had Sustainable Packaging Coalition on today, who is the home of that program, and would love to hear your perspectives just from the three of you around, pet food and the How to Recycle label. I know we are not, we're still a hard to understand material for them with the residues and the oil buildup. How have you all managed to partner with them or try to develop some type of streamlined process to move that label further into our industry so that we can be better educators for our consumer base?
I can comment on that right off the bat. We work very closely with SPC and H2R and have for several years now. I think going back at least 5 years that I've been involved. But we're involved with the subcommittees, and we have PrintPack representation on the executive committee of SPC as well. We've worked closely with them to develop the recyclability guidelines, the testing protocols, and the standards in combination with the Association for Plastic Recyclers. They're an essential NGO leading the charge to define the system that's easily communicated to the consumer. I would say that just a plug for H2R, that it's the most widely recognized label that I'm aware of for recycling flexible packaging. From a store drop-off perspective, which is what we're all talking about here with polyethylene, there's over 18,000 store drop-off locations across the U.S., and 90% of Americans have access within 10 miles of their homes to the store drop-off stream. So I feel like it's an integral part of being successful here and developing the true circularity that we're all driving to. And I foresee PrintPack being involved for many years to come with that organization.
Completely echo sentiments. Morris Packaging has been a member for, I think, 4 years now. I sit on a couple of the subcommittees, so we're greatly involved with them, greatly get involved with what they're trying to drive for, what they're trying to do. And going forward, I think William summed it up perfectly as far as where that leads us into the future.
Thanks.
Yeah, I think it's really important for us to embrace and move forward with a symbol that everybody can clearly understand what it means. Because obviously the resin codes that were invented in the late 60s, when you've got a code for garbage and nobody understands what it means, how many people sitting at home understand what a number 3 means or a number 7? So, the wishful recycling, Caitlin, that you do is great, but it would be so much better if we just had a way to simply communicate with you what to do with the package.
All right, everyone. I know Melissa has one more question for you before we head to our next session. So over to you, Melissa.
Thank you, Caitlin, and good afternoon, gentlemen. I'm going to ask the upfront, honest question, and because you are 3 of my favorite packaging suppliers, I know you guys are going to give me the frank answer, okay? So we're all pinky swearing. We're going to tell the truth right about now. So here's the question. There's been a lot of conversation today about collaboration and how do we get brands to work together with suppliers? How do we get suppliers to work together with resin producers? So the question that I have is, we have 15 packaging suppliers as part of PSC. How do I get you guys to work together to drive the industry forward so that we can create a non-competitive space to get these 300 million pounds of packaging out of the landfill? Glenn, you're grinning. You want to take this one from the start?
Oh, that's harsh. Sure. I think what we need to do is we need to look at the whole process, at the picture in its total. Okay. So we've got the brand owners, we've got the converters, we've got the consumers, we've got, the fillers that fill the pet food lines. We have to come up with a solution that works for everybody. And we just heard from, Kurt and who's a recycler. And this, I think, is the part of the circle that we need to close. If we want 300 million pounds of packaging to go back in and to be reused and recycled, everybody in this system needs to succeed. And unless a guy like Kurt, who is taking in garbage, he's got a bit of a dirtier job than some of us, unless he can do this and economically make money and it works for him, he's just going to take the packaging and throw it in the garbage. So that's where I think we need to go. We need to close the loop and we need to have it work for everybody. I mean, everything I've heard from Brian and William, I don't think they disagree. So, but go ahead.
No, I don't. Just wishful thinking. We all wish that the package would just evolve to a higher state after the contents are emptied. But I agree that I think we're starting to do that. We're already doing that at some level with organizations like How to Recycle, et cetera, that are bringing all of these companies together to get the solution. But I agree, it's got to be an overall commitment from the material suppliers, the filmmakers, the converters, the brand owners, the consumers, the MRFs, and the recyclers, and to get it done with the current infrastructure that we've got and continue to improve on that current infrastructure as we go forward. I don't see of any other way to tackle it besides having that agreement between all of us that it's the right thing to do.
PSC would be a great facilitator to bring all of those entities together, whether it be the resin manufacturers, the converters, the recyclers, bring us all together, help drive us all together in a room to come out to the common goal. I think everybody wants to do that. We just need somebody to kind of be that champion to put us all in that room to figure it out.
Good challenge.
Thank you, gentlemen. And I have a couple of hundred witnesses that at least the three of you are in for when I call the industry-wide meeting that you will show up. So thank you so much, gentlemen, for your honesty, for your collaboration, and for driving these sustainable solutions for the pet industry. Thank you so much.